Good evening, everyone. Tonight's shiur is called Reincarnation of a Murderer. Obviously, speaking about reincarnation, and we're going to bring a classic example of reincarnation from the Torah based upon the writings of the holy Rabbeinu ARIZAL. The parasha that deals with the Ten Commandments and the giving of the Torah is, of course, a very important one. And it's called after Yitro. Yitro was a convert to Judaism. He was a great theologian. He was also a great advisor in the courts of Pharaoh. In fact, when Pharaoh consulted his advisors, what should we do with the Jewish people? They're becoming numerous, etc. He actually left. He actually fled. He left the court. He didn't want to be involved in giving any advice that could be negative, that could cause pain and suffering. So he was a religious man. He was certainly a very spiritual man, spiritually motivated man. And here we find that Yitro was attracted to the Jewish nation and to Judaism. And the verse in the opening of the parasha of Yitro reads as follows: Vayishma Yitro Kohen Midian. He was a prince. He was as I mentioned, a great theologian. He was a high priest of Midian formerly, but when he adopted Judaism and renounced all forms of idol worship, he was belittled, he was denigrated. The Torah wants to highlight his quality, that despite the fact that he had such honor and he had such prestige, he still came knowing full well that if he renounces his former practices and beliefs, his honor and dignity will all be spoilt and leave. And indeed, such was the case. So the Torah says as follows: Vayishma Yitro Kohen Midian Hoten Moshe. This Yitro, who was formerly a high priest of Midian, Hoten Moshe, the father-in-law of Moshe. Et kol asher asa Elohim leMoshe l'Yisrael amo. He heard everything that God did to Moshe and the Jewish people. Ki hotzi Hashem et Yisrael miMitzrayim, for he has taken the Jewish people out of Egypt. Vayikach Yitro Hoten Moshe et Tzipora eshet Moshe ahar shilohea. Yitro brought with him Tzipora and also the two children of Moshe Rabbeinu, which were Gershom and Eliezer, and he brought them with him. Ahar shilohea, when they were sent away, Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was commanded by God to redeem the Jewish people and go to Egypt and demand from Pharaoh to let my people go, they traveled with him. Aharon comes along and says, what are you bringing your family, what are you bringing your wife and your two children into a place of suffering? To increase more people to suffer. Send them home. Send for them later. Indeed, Yitro comes now and joins the ranks of the Jew, wants to join the ranks of the Jewish people. And he brings Tzipora and his two grandchildren, Moshe Rabbeinu's children. Vayavo Yitro Hoten Moshe ubanav ishto el Moshe lamidbar asher hu honesham ahar Elohim. Yitro comes with his wife and the two children to the mountain of God. Vayomer El Moshe, and he sends a message to Moshe Rabbeinu. Ani hotencha Yitro ba elecha. I am your father-in-law Yitro, coming to you with your wife and your two children. Now, this is verse 6. In verse 5, it says, Vayavo Yitro Hoten Moshe, and Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, comes to the mountain of God. Then when he sends a message to Moshe Rabbeinu, the order is changed. And it says, Vayomer el Moshe, and he says to Moshe, Ani hotencha, I am your father-in-law, Yitro. He doesn't say, I am Yitro, your father-in-law. I am your father-in-law, Yitro. Why was the order changed? What was wrong with the order before? Yitro was a very, very prestigious man. The fact that he sends a message and says, hey, I'm Yitro, your father-in-law, is good enough, especially since the whole parasha is called after Yitro, which means that the Torah gives Yitro a lot of credence, and a lot of honor. So when he's coming to Moshe Rabbeinu and he sends a message, he should have sent the message as he said before. Ani Yitro, I am Yitro. And despite the fact that I am Yitro, a very honored person, I've come to you. Come to join your ranks. I.e. Yitro, your father-in-law. There are those that, many commentaries here, there are those that like to say that, well, it says it like that because he prided himself not being in Yitro. Before the Torah says, Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, came to the mountain of God. Shows his great importance for himself. He came to the mountain of God on his own, not because of he was the father-in-law of Moshe. That was secondary. He came, and the Torah gives him the kavod, the honor, for being Yitro, this prestigious man who came to know God on his own, who came to recognize God on his own. So the Torah calls him Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe. In other words, his honor is not just the fact that he's Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law, but the fact that he is Yitro, a great man in his own right. So they like to suggest that when he comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, he humbles himself and he says, I am your father-in-law. The greatest pride, the greatest joy for me right now is to be your father-in-law. You are the man of God. You are the man of God. You are the prophet of all prophets. I am your father-in-law, Yitro. Okay. However, it goes deeper than that. Let us go back to the beginning of the parasha. Vayishma Yitro. Yitro heard, and he came. Rashi asks the obvious question. What did he hear? What prompted him predominantly to hear and to come? Of course he heard about the exodus of Egypt. Of course he heard about all the miracles. But what dimension of divine and godly revelation prompted him to come? What aspect most caught him? You know, sometimes a person hears a sermon or studies some Torah, and it captivates their heart. But sometimes there's a particular piece that more attracted you, more caught you, if you know what I mean. More took you. That really took me. What took him? What part of redemption really took him? Rashi says, Kriyat Yamsuf u'melchemet Amalek. The splitting of the sea and the battle against Amalek. We're going to concentrate on the splitting of the sea, because that came historically first. And since that came first, that must be the primary. If Rashi lists it as the first, not only chronologically because it occurred, but in fact, it must be also of primary importance, the fact that Rashi lists it first. How do I know that? Because later on, he says like this. When he meets up with Moshe, and he says, it says over here, Vayomer Yitro. And Yitro says, Baruch Hashem asher yitzil etchem miyad Mitzrayim miyad Paro. Blessed is God, who have saved you from the hand of Egypt from the hand of Paro. Asher yitzil etam etachat yad Mitzrayim, has saved the whole nation from the oppression of Egypt. Listen to this. This is somewhat phenomenal. Ataya da'ati. Now I know, Ki gadol Hashem mikol ha'elohim. For the Lord is great, greater than all powers, greater than all influences. What prompts him to say such a statement? Ki badavar asher zadu alehem. For the very act that the Egyptians schemed to drown the Jews, to eradicate the Jews, to weaken the Jews, to oppress the Jews by drowning them in the Nile, all of the males, leaving only the females. Females will have no one to marry but the Egyptians, and all of the Jewish nation will disappear. They schemed to annihilate the Jewish people. So Yitro is wonderstruck. Wow. You know what took me the most, Moshe Rabbeinu? You know what made me really, really believe in God? You know what really took me? You know what really inspired me to come? The splitting of the sea. Because the Jewish people, the Egyptians, schemed to drown the Egyptians, and they in turn were drowned. In other words, they were punished, midah keneged midah. He saw God's measure of justice, God's attribute of justice, measure for measure. What they wanted to do was brought upon them. What they schemed was brought upon them. This took him. He was wonderstruck by it. This is how I know that the first reason that Rashi brings, Kriyat Yam Suf, the splitting of the sea, was the most predominant thing, that when he heard about that, that's it, I'm coming. He already renounced idol worship. He didn't have to come. He already renounced idol worship. He was a believer in God. But now he did more. He came to want to be a part of the Jewish nation. What made him want to come and be a part of the Jewish nation? What prompted him so much? Predominantly the splitting of the sea. Why? Now I know, he says, now I know. Before you didn't know, you renounced idol worship, which means you knew God beforehand. What prompted you now to make such a statement? Now you know, now you see the awesomeness of God. Now you appreciate the miracles. You didn't appreciate. Even the miracle of the splitting of the sea didn't bother him so much. In other words, didn't take him. And we know that the miracle of the splitting of the sea, we spoke about it, was a revelation of all the hidden worlds. Was a necessary prerequisite to the giving of the Torah. It was a revelation that was unparalleled. Not the 10 plagues that showed God mastery over the world. You know why? Because he knew that before. He appreciated that before. The splitting of the sea, that God suspends nature again in an awesome way, and that there is revelation, and that there is prophecy, that also didn't take him. What took him was the punishment that was meted out to the Egyptians, for they planned and schemed. The very plan and scheme was brought upon them. In other words, God's attribute of justice. And we know in a way God's attribute of justice is more connected to concealment than it is revelation. That took you so much. We know that God's attribute of justice is associated with the attribute of gvura. True, the Kabbalists teach us, without gvura, without God's attribute of severity or judgment or concealment, there wouldn't be a world. And God intends for there to be a world, but it is concealment nonetheless. God's attribute of justice is a concealment. God's kindness and love is a revelation. And of course, you need both. But nonetheless, it is an attribute more associated with concealment than revelation. That's what took you. Okay. Shmuel, can I ask you to please kindly hand out these sheets? This one and this one. Okay, so you have these sheets in front of you. And to answer the question, the Holy ARIZAL says, to answer the question why it uses the expression of Ani Hotencha Yitro, I am Hotencha, your father-in-law, and Yitro, and not I am Yitro, your father-in-law, as it did in the previous verse, one verse before. It said, Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, came to the mountain of God. Why? Says the Holy ARIZAL, because the words, the 3 words of Ani Hotencha Yitro, spells the word Ahi. You are my brother. You are my brother. He's sending him a code, he's sending him a message which was divinely inspired. Yitro may not have known this, because we know that sometimes prophecy. A person is endowed with prophecy or a level of prophecy without even knowing it. Niva velo yada sheniva, for example, the Gemara says. He prophesied and he didn't know that he prophesied. For example, in regards to Abraham Avinu, Abraham Avinu was asked to come and sacrifice his son. And what does he tell them? Shvupo imana, stay here with the Shvupo imahamor, stay here with the mule, and me and Yitzhak will come back. He didn't know. How did he know? He prophesied without knowing. The Gemara says he prophesies without knowing that he prophesies. Which means that sometimes there are statements that are made, it's a prophecy, but we don't even know that it was a prophecy. It was a message from God. But Moshe Rabbeinu knew it, for he was a prophet of all prophets. He sends him a message, I am your brother. You are my brother. And that's why that's the order. Ani hotencha yitro aleph, het, and yud. Ahi. Were to say, Ani yitro hotencha, they would not spell out ahi in that order. So what's he saying? He's saying, I am your brother. The Holy ARIZAL says, Moshe Rabbeinu, was a reincarnation in Shara Pesukim, in the gates of the interpretation of the verses. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu was a reincarnation of Hevel. Yitro was a reincarnation of Cain. They were brothers. Moshe Rabbeinu was reincarnated. Hevel was very spiritual, was reincarnated. But Cain also needed to be reincarnated because he needed to be rectified and fixed. Who best to fix and rectify him? Hevel, his brother, who was killed by him. Which right now, in this reincarnation, is Moshe Rabbeinu. The two brothers meet again in another lifetime. Let's see it in the verses. So we will now take you on a journey to Bereshit, to the episode of Cain and Hevel, the killing, the slaying, the murderer Cain of his brother Hevel. And let's take you there. Chapter 4 in Bereshit. And it reads as follows. You remember the story. I'm not going to go with the whole story that one brought a sacrifice, the other didn't bring it. The other also brought a sacrifice. God received one and not the other. And Cain was crestfallen. Was his face fell, so to speak. It was crestfallen. He was disappointed, despondent, and depressed. And God spoke to him. God sent him a vision, a revelation, and told him, what are you upset about? When you do good, you cause good to the whole world. Say it. It's acceptable. It's something that is pleasing upon high. When you don't, it's not. You have a mission, and there are consequences to every one of our actions. Listen to this. Vayomer Cain el Hevel, and Cain spoke to Hevel, Ahiv, his brother. He doesn't say what he spoke to him about. Soon we will see. Vayibi yotam basadeh. It's very interesting. And Cain spoke to Hevel, and when they were in the field, Vayakom Cain el Hevel Ahiv vayargeu, and Cain got up against his brother Hevel, and he killed him. It doesn't say what he said. He killed him. He just said they had a conversation. Cain said something to Hevel, and then when they were in the field, he got up and he killed him. Remind me, I'm not going to comment now because I don't know whether we'll have time, the significance of when they were in the field. Why does the Torah point out he killed him in the field? You could have easily killed him in the tent. You could have easily killed him behind the tent, right next to where they were living. What's the significance of the field? Remind me if we have time, I'll speak about that. But because it's not the focus, and intimately connected to what I want to talk about. I may leave it out if we don't have time. But there's an important lesson to learn from that as well. The Targum, Yerushalmi, and Rabbi Yonatan ben Uziel both say the same thing. They had a theological debate. They had an argument. What was the argument? The argument that prompted Cain to be furious with his brother and strike him, and ultimately the striking him led to him being killed. There are many who suggest that he didn't know how to kill someone. He didn't realize that striking someone could possibly kill someone. But he was enraged, and he struck him. And by striking him, he killed him, and thus he had to wander like a killer who kills by accident, that is sent into exile. But since he killed through anger and through his rage, and he struck him not by accident, he struck him on purpose. It's much more serious than someone who, threw up a stick, an axe jovially in the street and couldn't really care, and he hit someone and he killed someone, and he didn't mean to, but he was just careless. Or he climbed up a ladder and he fell and he killed someone by accident, which is even less responsible. But nonetheless, he killed someone. And that's why the Torah says you have to go into exile. Manslaughter, you have to go into exile. Don't go scot-free, because the murder came through you. If it came through you, it means that something in your soul was lacking, was missing. Something was deficient, you need to fix it. So Cain killed his brother. Had to be fixed. Had to be rectified. Let's see. There was a theological debate between the two that caused him to be enraged. Targum Yerushalmi and Rabbi Yonatan ben Uziel explain as follows. The argument that Cain had with Hevel is let din velet dayan. There is no justice and there is no judge. In other words, God doesn't care what happens in this world. No judgment. There's no consequences to our actions. God is too way abstract and beyond to care about the small little actions of man, the machinations of man. Do what you want. There's no consequences to action. Letav letzadikaya. There is no good reward stored for the righteous. Velet alma da'ata, and there's no world to come. This is it. This is what you get. This world is what you get. Make the best of it. Don't waste your time. Enjoy. Cain was more spiritual and had a much more sensitive nature. That's why he was, Hevel, I beg your pardon. That's why it's called Hevel. Hevel in Hebrew means breath. The breath. Breath is something not tangible. Cain comes from the word kinyan, to acquire, to touch, to feel. He was very materialistic. He was very physical. And that's why later on it says that Cain built cities. He was a builder. He was a developer. Hevel was spiritual. That's why he was a shepherd. This theological debate caused him to be enraged. Hevel said, no, there is justice. There is a judge. God judges. There are consequences to our actions. There is good reserved for the righteous. There is a world to come. This world is just a preparation for a higher world, a loftier world. A world of great revelation. A world of great spirituality. In his rage, he got up, he struck him, and he died. Vayomer Hashem el Cain, ay hevel ahicha. And God said to Cain, where is your brother? Where is Hevel, your brother? To engage him in conversation, to see what he says, to see whether he becomes remorseful, to see whether he confesses. Very hard for us to confess. God gave man the opportunity. He did that with Adam and Eve, if you recall as well. He did that with Shaul, with King Saul, with the prophet Samuel, if you recall. Vayom lo yadati. I don't know. Hashomer ahi anochi. Am I responsible for my brother? Ahi, we hear the word, we have ahi. Ahi, my brother. Vayomer me asita. What have you done? God tells him. After he saw, gave him an opportunity, gave him an opening for repentance, and he didn't seize that opportunity. What have you done? Called the blood in plural. We don't have the word blood in Hebrew, in English as plural, but in Hebrew you have it as plural. The bloods of your brother is calling out to me from the ground. Plural meaning to say you robbed him of getting married. You robbed him of having children. You robbed him of generations. It's calling out to me. It's crying out to me. You robbed him of all of that potential. You robbed him of children. You are cursed, etc., etc. I'm going to skip a little bit. Vayomer Kain el Hashem, just a few. And he will become a wanderer, God tells him, which is the punishment, exile. Basically, you go into exile. Vayomer Kain el Hashem, and Kain said to Hashem, now realizing what he has done, now realizing that he snubbed a life forever, that's it, finished, killed him. Gadol avonim eneso, great is my sin, greater than what I can bear. And gerashta oti hayom me'al penei adama, you have exiled me from the lands, umipanecha, and from your face, esater, I will hide. V'hayiti na v'nad ba'aretz, v'yakol motzi'i hargeni, and I have now become a wanderer. V'haya kol motzi'i hargeni. Now the commentaries explain that since the Tzelem Elokim, the sign of God, the visage of God that surrounds man, the godly halo that surrounds man is gone from him, from this great sin that he has done. He says, V'haya kol motzi'i hargeni, anybody will come and kill me. In other words, even an animal can rule me. Till now, the animals are frightened of the human being because of his spirituality. But when you behave like an animal, then called Alim Gabar, the fittest survive. So he was complaining to God, someone will kill me. This is the literal translation. The deeper translation is, oh God, let it be that I find a tikkun, that I find a rectification, and let it be that someone should come and strike me and kill me, so I can find atonement for what I have done. But the literal translation is as I mentioned, and we will follow along with that because of the continuation. Vayomer Elo Hashem, and God says to him, Lachen, therefore, kol horeg Kain, and there's a stop there, there's a break there. Shivatayim you come. Whoever kills Kain literally means will be avenged sevenfold. And therefore, you have nothing to worry about. Don't worry, you're not going to be killed now. Rashi explains it differently. He says, Lachen kol horeg Kain. No, there will be a killer of Kain. Kol horeg Kain, there will be. Kain will indeed be put to death for his sin, because that's the only way you'll be atoned. Shivatayim you come. Shivatayim you come means to say, not now, but in generations to come. You will not be fully avenged now. You will not be fully rectified now. You will be rectified in generations to come. Not now. Okay. You got that sheet in front of you? That says you come. The word you come, right over here, means avenged. You come. See that? Shmuel, if you were to be kind enough to hand these sheets out. The Holy ARIZAL says as follows. Do you hear this one? The Holy ARIZAL says that the word you come, which means avenged or rectified, could also mean yakum, means to say you will be resurrected. You will be resurrected sevenfold until you find your rectification. You'll be avenged 7 times, meaning to say the blood of your brother will be avenged through you 7 times. And therefore the word you come is the acronym of 3 words or 3 people. Yitro for Yud, Kuf is Korah, Mem is Mitzri. You see that? The Holy ARIZAL says you will be resurrected, you will be reincarnated. And you will be reincarnated in a generation of when your brother will be reincarnated. And who will that be? That will be Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu will be the reincarnation of Hevel. And he will rectify you. And you will be reincarnated into three forms. Because we know that we have a nefesh, ruach, and neshama. We have three parts to the soul. We have five, but three that is enclosed in the body. One part will go in Yitro. One part will go in Korach. Remember, Korach made a challenge against the leadership of Moshe Rabbeinu. One part will be in the Egyptian who got up to slay another Jew, and Moshe Rabbeinu saved him with self-sacrifice and with the name of the divine name, saved the Jewish person that the Egyptians sought to kill. And this is the three people that are hinted in the word Yukam. Yud Kuf Mem, Yukam, means to say, be avenged or will be resurrected or uplifted or reincarnated. Now, we're not going to speak about the Egyptian, because the Egyptian, the punishment was death, like indeed he asked for. That you will be put to death, God tells him. But not now, later. When? When you'll be reincarnated in the Egyptian. That part of you will be put to death, will be deserving of death. Because that part of you is a bloodthirsty part of you that needs the only way to rectify that is to still it. And then there is the debate between Korah, and I'm not going to speak about it a lot, Moshe Rabbeinu. But very, very briefly, Korah, in fact, wanted to herald in the future redemption. He was speaking about a level of the future redemption. He spoke about it one time in the Shurim many, many years ago. So I'll just tell you the very small gist of it. When Korah came and said, Kulam Kedoshim, why is there a Kohen? Why is there Moshe Rabbeinu that is a leader? Why is there Kohen? Everybody should be on the level Kohanim. He was in fact speaking about the future redemption. The base part of him was pure jealousy. But the spiritual part of him actually was speaking sense, was speaking spirituality, was speaking about the future redemption. Remember what the problem of Cain had with Hevel? He killed him. That was the Egyptian. He was killed. With Korah, one of the arguments of Cain to Hevel was, there's no world to come. Korah was saying, I want the world to come and I want it now. I want it now. Moshe Rabbeinu told him it doesn't work like that. There's a way how to achieve it, etc., etc., etc. But I'm not focusing on that because we don't have time. But what I want to focus is Yitro, because that is the main dimension of the reincarnation. Why? Because he brought the wife of Moshe Rabbeinu. That wife was a reincarnation of the wife of Hevel, that he deprived him of that wife then. And the two children, the bloods of your brother, plural, minimum plural is two. The bloods of your brother is crying out, i.e. the children, the future generation. The genealogy of Hevel is crying out. You snubbed him. You robbed him of future children. He, Yitro, was the one that brought the wife. God made it in a way that he brings the wife. And that he brings, in fact, he gave birth to that reincarnate of that wife. And in fact, he brought the children. He was responsible as a grandfather. He facilitated it. And not only did he facilitate it by being his father-in-law, giving birth to Tzipporah and bringing them together to wed. But in fact, when there was even a separation, he brought them back. And the most powerful point of all, the most poignant point of all, is the fact that what really brought him to recognize God to the greatest degree, what? The attribute of God's justice, remember? Now, I don't know about me and you and me. I don't know about you, but I know for me, when I was studying this many years ago, I was very taken aback by this. It really bothered me. This is what prompted Yitro to come. God's attribute of justice, the miracles, the revelations, the glory, the greatness, the power, the love, the outstretched hand, the expression of God's love and God's favor. That takes me. God's justice, yeah, of course, but it didn't take me so much. So they got what they deserved. Pshita, I don't expect anything less. That's normal. The love, the extension of love, even though they were undeserving, the miracles, the revelation, even though they were undeserving as of yet, and God told them, I'm looking at your potential. That's beautiful. That captivates me. And that bothered me a lot. And I didn't really see too many commentaries speak about it until I searched in the writings of the ARIZAL and I found this, literally 2.5 lines. Lemazali, to my luck, I happened to learn the Targum Yerushalmi and Yonatan Uziel, and I remember the whole conversation that the commentaries there speak about Cain and Abel. I remembered it, and I was able to catch on to what he was saying. Otherwise, I wouldn't have understood what he was talking about. It happened to be, to my luck, that I happened to learn that whole concept years prior to that. And then I said, wow. The reason why he was so captivated by God's attribute of justice is because he refused to accept God's attribute of justice. Cain told to Hevel, there's no let din velet dayan, there's no judge and there is no judgment in the world. That's what led him, because he felt that there was no consequence to action. You can do what you want. You want to strike someone, you can strike someone. You want to take someone's wife, take someone's wife. You want to appreciate God's bounty and share, you can. You don't want to, don't. There's no justice. There's no judgment in the world. Do what you want. All of a sudden he comes along and he says, now I know that God is great from all other powers and influence of the world, the constellations, the sun, the moon. They're all great. They're all powerful. They influence the world. But it is God who moves and shakes everything. And what really brought me to realize this is God's attribute of judgment, justice. That there are consequences to our actions. Look what the Egyptians did. What they planned and schemed came tumbling upon them. The sea came tumbling upon them and drowned them. This is what took him. Why did it take him? Because that's what was lacking in his life. It didn't take me. It took him. Because that's who he was. That's what was lacking in his previous reincarnation. And now he fixed that by recognizing something that people, of course, recognized, but didn't make a big deal out of it. What made him come? What made him join the ranks of the Jewish people? What made him do all of that self-sacrifice? It wasn't the miracles in Egypt. It wasn't even the miracle itself of the splitting of the sea. It was God's judgment that came upon the Egyptians, measure for measure. That's what made him come. And that's why he says, Ani hotencha Yitro, I am your brother, your father-in-law Yitro, Ahi, I'm your brother. I've come to fix my sin. I've come to rectify my sin. You, Moshe Rabbeinu Hevel, you're the one to fix it. You're the one to direct me and help me. But guess what? Wonders of wonders. The guy converts 2 days ago, and he's already giving advice to Moshe Rabbeinu. What does he do? He just converted. Become comfortable a little bit. Learn a little bit more. He gives Moshe Rabbeinu advice. Out of all of the things that he advises Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, what are you doing, Moshe? He says, I'm judging the people. I'm judging the nation. He says, not good what you're doing. He sees a long line of people waiting for Moshe Rabbeinu to judge. He says to Moshe Rabbeinu, that's not how you judge people. It's not good for justice. Because people, in the meantime, their arguments are not quelled. Their arguments fester. Because you can't see everybody and judge everybody in one time. No good. Appoint heads of 10s, heads of 50s, heads of 100s, heads of thousands, etc. And they will judge. Choose good people, righteous people, people that hate gain, people who are truthful. They will judge. And the difficult thing, something that they cannot deal with, something too difficult, they'll bring to you. But your mission is to teach the nation and to deal with difficult cases. Appoint other judges and let justice reign. Unbelievable. And Moshe Rabbeinu takes his advice. Again, what prompted him to open his mouth? Sit still. You're a newcomer, and you come and you give advice. And who are you giving advice to? To the teacher of all teachers, to the one that God spoke to. Did God speak to you? No, God didn't speak to me. So what allows you this audacity, if we can use that word, even though it didn't come from audacity, but where are you coming from? You're coming from because his objective in life is to fix the sin of justice, of lack of justice. And that's why he comes on to, and Moshe Rabbeinu listens, and he gives Moshe Rabbeinu advice. Moshe Rabbeinu says, very, very good, you're right. You're right, I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that because it's not something that's so much lacking by me. But in your previous life, it was lacking by you. That's why you're more sensitive to it than me. And that's why he made a rectification in the concept of judgment and justice. And God sanctioned it. And he says, if God so chooses, if it's worthy in the eyes of God, then do so. If not, don't listen to me. And indeed, God sanctioned it. What? Why didn't God do it before? He waited for Yitro to come and rectify his sin. And that is why that's the particular advice that he gave, and that is why particularly that is what captivated him so much. I want to tell you a very important lesson in life. I've always believed in this myself, and then later on, subsequently, I've saw it written a few times, which obviously strengthened my belief. Whenever in our lives we find something that is very difficult and challenging for us, know that is perhaps the main thing why we came down to this world. Why this reincarnation we need to fix. Or a particular mitzvah that we cherish the most. Why does he love this mitzvah more than the other mitzvot? Of course you have to love all of the mitzvot, but why do you love this mitzvah more than any other mitzvah? It's because your soul thirsts for it, because you need this mitzvah. You need this mitzvah in this reincarnation. Because maybe in a previous reincarnation, you were lax in it. In this reincarnation, you thirst for it. Equally, if something is extremely difficult, know that this is what your soul came down to this world. And if you fail in this, God forbid, it's possible you need to be reincarnated again just to fix that. And the reason why it's difficult is because it's crucial to you. And you will only rectify it when there's forces against, challenging you. And you have to muster all of your strength and call together within you all of your spiritual power to overcome it. That is how you rectify what needs to be rectified. And that for this reason we find that for this guy, kashrut is not a problem. For this guy, kashrut is the most difficult thing in the world. This guy's got a very hot temper. This guy is calm as a cool cucumber. Nothing bothers him, nothing. Why is this guy calm and cool like a cucumber, and this guy, everything bothers him? Why is this fly roaming around? It's because we all have different things that we have to fix. And if we have different things that we have to fix, we're also given the power, the tools, and the spiritual drive, motivation, and capability to be able to fulfill it. But know a rule, it's crucial for us. Therefore, don't, and we know that what do we usually neglect in our lives, in our spiritual journeys? What do we neglect? The stuff that's the most difficult for us, or the stuff that we least appreciate, or the stuff that we least understand. It's the most difficult for us to relate to, or hardest for me to conquer. So what do? I ignore that one. It's too difficult. Put it in the hard basket. Let me concentrate on that. Tefillin, I'm good with tefillin. Yeah, tefillin is okay. I can put that on. Charity, yeah, I'm good with that. The other guy, charity, can't give a cent. He's rich like Korah. He's the wealthiest man. He can't give money. Just can't give it. Can't give it. What's your problem? This guy's poor. He doesn't even have a 1,000th of what you have, and he gives charity left, right, and center. Know that it's crucial for you. Whatever it is that's most hardest for you, that is a telltale sign that's crucial for you. That's a telltale sign. And therefore work on that. Work on it, work on it, work on it. Break it down, break those barriers, break those walls down. Slowly subdue it. Slowly master it and overpower it. Because it's crucial for us. Similarly, as I mentioned before, if there's a mitzvah that you love, You love it for a reason. Grab onto that mitzvah. Avuch Mazai Tzved, Gemara says that they used to ask amongst the scholars, what is your father? Which mitzvah does your father favor the most and the most careful? Every mitzvah we love. But what were they trying to say? If your father loves a particular mitzvah, it means that his soul is connected to that mitzvah. Similarly, if there is a mitzvah that is difficult for you, it means your animal soul needs that to be rectified. Your godly soul thirsts for this mitzvah that you love so much, and your animal soul finds it difficult and does not want to allow you, because by overpowering it, you weaken the impurities and the husks of the world. And by doing so, you remove the impurities of the world. And the task of impurity is to afford you free choice. That's what it's got to do. That's its objective. And because it's crucial to you, it sends all of its power and all of its armament to make it difficult for you. But if you overcome that, you're the champion. You have rectified much things in your soul. This is, of course, in addition to all the mitzvot that we all have to fulfill, so we can't neglect one over the other. But those two rules, one that you love and the one that's most difficult, are crucial for all of us to understand. Okay? I'll stop here. Any questions?